Phil here at When Studios, and today I'm going to have a look at putting a whole track together in the DAW, as we can do in the studio. Obviously we can bring in people, players and whatever, but sometimes you just want to keep it intimate. What I'm going to look at today though is a song that's just recently turned 50 years old. In fact it's 51 by now, but when I started looking at it for this project it was just turned 50. The song's Barbara O'Reilly by The Who. And so far ahead of its time, and that's the thing that I'll emphasise when we play it. It's one of the first, if not the first, rock songs that used an electronic ostinato. I mean, ostinato is not anything new. It's been used in classical music for some time and in recent rock music as well. A couple of examples, I guess, the Star Wars, the Imperial theme. It has an ostinato, and by that, that's repeating underlying bed that other instruments then play over the top. Pachelbel's canon, if you're the poor cello player, you'll know that you play the same pattern time and time again. Over and over and over till it finishes. But what makes the ostinato is it lays down a strong bed for other things. In modern music, the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows uses an ostinato with bass and other instruments. In more recent times, Porcupine Tree, Steve Wilson has used it in Dead Wing, the actual song Dead Wing on that album. Billie Jean by Michael Jackson uses that repeated bass track. The Verve with Bittersweet Symphony using a sample that just repeats constantly, and they lay everything over the top of that. Well, Barbara O'Reilly does very much the same thing, but quite interesting using an electronic version of it. In this case, it was actually done on an old Lowrey organ, and I'll put a link down the bottom to show you at least one demonstration of it, how it was done. Obviously it was recorded and kept set on tape and built the rest of the song around it, and the other players had to play. What I'll do, rather than describe what I've done, to get that ostinato component, I've used a synthesizer. Now in the DAW, of course, it's going to be a soft synth. It's actually a Mini Moog by Aturia, and I'll put the patch for that underneath. Before I go on in any detail, let's just hear what it is, and like I said, I'm pretty pleased with what came out. This is the When Studios version of Barbara O'Reilly. So that's the sound I got. There's been a few, and you'll find others on the web. I'm not the only person that's done this, but I've done a hybrid of a few things. So essentially what we've got, let's go to the synth. This is the Mini Moog Aturia version 2. As I said, I've also done it on the version 3. Essentially, and take a screen grab of this. I won't go into any detail of zooming in or whatever, but essentially I've used all the oscillators at 4 foot on a square, 2 foot on a sawtooth, and 8 foot on a pulse, and together they make a particular sound. Now, like I said, the Arturia and the software versions of the Mini Moog add a few things. It's added a arpeggiator and also delay. I'll just turn those off. This is the sound that you're actually using. That's it. A very short delay. So those who know about synthesis, it's down here on the modifiers, which is otherwise the attack, decay, sustain, release on most synthesizers. You have a very fast attack and a very short decay. The things we've added though are these, the arpeggiator. By putting the arpeggiator on, I'll just play what happens now. So that gives that repeating sound, which emulates kind of what the Lowrey organ does. It does it a bit different. It's not quite the same as the organ did it, and nor did we really have delay. I've just put a little bit of delay, which is synchronized to the project beats per minute. Now the song is in 116 beats per minute. If I just pull up the transport there, you can see it's 116 beats per minute. It does slow down to 86 towards the end, but I'll mention that when I get there. Now, just quickly, we are using the arpeggiator in the Mini V here. The speed, you can see that coming up there, is, it says 4 times because it's synchronized to the 116 for the beats per minute, that is, for the project. But if you're using a synthesizer that doesn't have the arpeggiator, there is a workaround for it. Most of your DAWs will have, and I'll just turn off, I'll turn the arpeggiator off, so now we're back to that sound. I've actually put here in the MIDI inserts an arpeggiator. This is something that comes with Cubase, but I know there's equivalent others. It's an arpeggiator. So at the moment I've turned the arpeggiator off in the synth and turned it back on here. So there's the sound. I click it on there. So this is the arpeggiator. It's a bit small, but essentially this will act the same way as the arpeggiator in the built-in to the synth. So the step size will be 1/16 of a beat. We'll just start here. So essentially, as I said, we've got the arpeggiator and just a delay to give some extra ambience to it. And essentially you play it. So let me just, I'll show you what I'm doing here. So that's the sound. The thing that makes it really quirky, it's this other little trill that comes in. Now, what I've done, and because we can quite easily, I've just copied the whole setup of that Mini Moog, put onto a separate track. So I play the little trill part separately. Again, all the same settings, and I'll go back to those. I'll just show you what we're talking about. We're talking around here. The original organ allowed you to play those over the top of each other, and when I show you, actually, I'll pull that up now. I've got the video of the guy actually playing it, and I'll put a link to this video. But I'll put a link to that, so you'll be able to reference it yourself. There's a couple of videos on it actually, but that's just one of them. So that's the main part. Now again, like I said, we're going to do this all in the DAW. The first other instrument that comes in after the synthesizer, which is the Lowrey organ, of course, is the piano. I didn't use the baby grand for this. I used, again, because the exercise is about doing the whole thing in the DAW, I used a sampler, Contact by Native Instruments. I'll just show you. I've got it's a New York Grand, which approximates a Steinway. I think Pete Townsend used a Bosendorfer, at least I've seen him use it on other tracks, so I'm figuring it's probably the same. But either way, it's a classical piano. So it's I've tweaked it a little bit to get the sound that I want. It's not too bottom endy. It's got a cut through because you've already got that ostinato running through, and we've got other instruments to come. So let's just hear that as it enters. I'll play it for you. Now, I actually got my drummer, one of my drummers, my son, to play most of this in. But then what I did, I took the, because it was played on a MIDI drum kit, took those and then matched those to a nice studio drummer, which is a Native Instruments product. But of course you could use your own drums. These are pretty classic studio drummer, that's why I use them. Sound very similar to the drums that would have been around at the time. So that's what I've done. Next thing to come in is actually the two things. Basically the bass and the vocals come in. I'll just quickly, on this particular one, I used a synth bass. In fact, I've used a Roland soft synth, which is their XV580. But any kind of slap bass, and you know, you can use external synthesizers and bring those in as well. But I've just used it again because the exercise was about let's do this all in the DAW, and a pretty convincing sound on that. Obviously, you're hearing my keyboard more than you're hearing the bass, but let's hear it in context. And the vocals come in at the same time. So, and I'll just briefly talk about the illustrious vocalist. I'm here in the field. I fight for my meal. I get my back into my living. And as you can see, there's a couple of trills in there. What I've also done for you, there's this great isolated bass part with John Entwistle, who played this particular piece, playing it live, and they've just isolated him so you can actually see what he does. But essentially he's playing the main chord progression F, C, B flat, but with a little trill which I've tried to emulate it there. But familiarise yourself with that if you want to be more accurate. In terms of the vocals, yeah, the vocalist is yours truly. And I'll just play a little bit of that there. Sally, take my hand. We'll travel south across land. Around the fire, on the path, I won't say too much about the vocals, apart from I'm what you get because that's what you had. But I work cheap. I do work cheap. I've doubled the vocals, the usual reverb and echo in there. So your effects setup are going to be slightly different to mine. I'll just pull up what I've got on here. I've actually got an aural exciter. That's an Ozone product. I just put a gate for noise, and I'm using a optical compressor on the vocals. Then it's sent off to some reverb, and this is CLA's Echo. Can I edit that? Let's edit the effects. So yeah, it's basically got some slap echo and some space echo joined together. That's what I've used. Of course, you can use whatever you think's appropriate. So that's most of the parts. Let's just have a look at that guitar. I used a Fender Strat. I'll just grab that, plug it in. You could obviously use your stomp boxes and all the other tools that we have. I have actually done it all in the DAW, so I've actually got an amp rack, which is part of the Cubase suite of effects. I'll show you what I've got on there though. Just a bit of, let's go back to the pre-effects. A gate to stop noise, not that it will need it here. Equalizer, you can see here I've just dropped the low end because I just need it to cut through. I don't want it to dominate the bottom end. We've got bass and drums to do that. I've got overdrive, not a lot of drive though. Most of the overdrive actually comes from the amp modeler, which is a Fender Deluxe model in this one, matched with a cabinet. The main chord progression, which is F, C, wasteland. Sally, take my hand. We'll travel south across the land. Around the fire and on the path my shoulder. You can barely hear it until I punch back in the effects. The guitar just needs to cut through. The bass is doing the bottom end work along with the drums, and you need room for the guitarist as well. So, sorry, for the vocalist as well. And effectively for the little guitar solo, it's not very long. I'll just quickly play it for you. It's exactly the same setup on the guitar, except I pulled out the overdrive effect and amped up the a bit of tape echo. I'll show you how that goes. But and again, that was just played on the Fender. The only other thing was the middle section on the vocals, where Pete Townsend comes in. I don't sing as high as he does, so what I did, I've actually put, I'll just zoom in there momentarily. I've just put some, overdubbed some harmony vocals just to thicken it up. You'll know the section I hear about this. So Roger Daltrey sings most of the vocal line, but then Pete Townsend comes in for this middle section. Now this is also the section where things change, and you can see up here the chord progression goes from that F ostinato that goes all the way through in the F, C, B flat to a different progression. It's C, F, there's a F sus there, you can't quite see it, back to C, and then it goes back to the original. I will put the chord progression underneath. This is how I overcame my vocal inadequacies. Don't cry, don't raise your eye. It's only teenage wasteland. Sally, take. And that's it. Now, for those of you who know the song, of course, when we get towards the end, there is actually a tempo change. Now, I've put that in here. I've actually used a tempo track in here, and the tempo actually goes from, you can probably just see that, maybe just see it. That's the 116 that's been all the way through, and then it drops down to 86 beats per minute. You can ramp that. I've just done a step change because the guitar sits over. The piano actually holds the note, but I'll just show you how that sounds. to the chord progression there too, which, as I said, the link will show you what they are. The link I'll send you is pretty close. Just remember though, if you're playing along with the original track, I think you need to tune up or tune down. I can't remember now, but it's not. You won't match it. If you wanted to go exactly the same as the original, then by all means give it a go. But anytime you do a cover, you want to put your own little nuances on it. So that's it. That's me for today. And maybe at a future date I'll come back and put in the violin solo at the end. We didn't get that far. That's after the tempo change. There's also versions live where Roger plays it on harmonica. So there's some choice there. I'm looking to put the violin, but that's something for another time. So for the time being, let's fill it when, and I'm out. Take it easy, folks. Bye for now.